I want to acknowledge the co-chairs, Lawrence Gilroy, President Gilroy, Kernan, and Gilroy, Inc., who has served since 2011. Thank you. And Dr. Marion Terenzio, President of SUNY Cobleskill, who became co-chair in August of this year. Thank you for your service. It's good to see all of you again. I'm always excited once we get here. It is an exciting process. I thank you for coming to Albany to share your progress from the past year and to tell us about your exciting plans for the year ahead. The panel is looking forward to your presentation, and they are well prepared. I want to introduce my colleagues on the SIAT who are present today. We have with us Commissioner Richard Ball from the New York State Department of Ag and Markets, Commissioner Roanne DeStito from the Office of General Services, Eric Kulisate, Commissioner of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, Michael Schmidt, Commissioner of Department of Tax and Finance, Brian Stratton, Director of Canals of the New York State Canals Corporation, Ruth Ann Wisnowski, Commissioner of DHCR, Department of Homes and Community Renewal. And we have with us today, we are joined by Senator Anna Kaplan from District 7 in New York State. And we will be joined in another half hour by Matt Driscoll, who is Acting Executive Director of the New York State Thruway Authority, and he's on his way down from Syracuse. And he's also how did they leave you out?
I don't know. I am wounded.
So, no, I actually saved you for last. Our most rambunctious Commissioner, Roberta Reardon, who is now a veteran of this process and needs no introduction, which is why they left her name out, from the New York State Department of Labor. So thank you all.
That's why.
And if we're joined by any other luminaries in the process, I will come back and introduce them. So to the REDC, you have 45 minutes for your presentation, which will be followed by a Q&A session with the team. And with that, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you, and good morning.
Good morning.
It's a pleasure to be here. We're thrilled. And my name is Marion Terenzio, and I am a proud co-chair of this wonderful REDC from the Mohawk Valley. On behalf of the REDC, we'd like to thank you for allowing us to be your leadoff batter. You are clearly aiming for the fences, but in our case, you're aiming for the cornfields. To my left is Larry Gilroy, who is the co-chair since 2011, Shelley Callahan, the Mohawk Valley Center for Refugees, Steve DeMeo, president of Mohawk Valley Edge, and Michael Reese, our ESD regional coordinator. And in the audience is another REDC member, Sarah Goodrich. Thank you, Sarah. It makes sense that we go first. After all, we've been the trailblazers since 2011, and we deliver on our promises. Keeping our promises is possible because you, the SIAT team, have believed in us since 2011. 8 years ago, when we shared our vision for the Mohawk Valley, people must have thought to themselves, are these people out of their minds? Nanotechnology? Turning lights back on in long-abandoned factories? The fastest-growing tourism economy in upstate New York? Top Greek yogurt producers? What's next? Airplanes without pilots? But you didn't laugh. You believed in us. You invested in us, and we are grateful. And what better way to show our gratitude than through our progress reports? They portray our winning spirit, commitment, and determination to support vibrant communities, expand manufacturing, and nurture talented people, create cool places, and be a leading edge in technology. This is a people-forward agenda. We are a region of makers, innovators, collaborators, of immigrants, exporters, and yes, even explorers.
Good morning. Environmental justice. When we say people forward, we mean it. It starts with our most vulnerable communities. And I sit here before you really representing those communities as the executive director of the center, formerly known as the Mohawk Valley Resource Center for Refugees. I work with vulnerable communities every day, and it is so incredibly, I think, forward-thinking for the MVREDC to include someone like me on this panel. During the past century, it is painfully clear that we've made mistakes when it comes to inclusive planning, infrastructure development, and economic development priorities. Communities of color and blue-collar neighborhoods have borne the brunt of these decisions in terms of environmental quality and opportunity. As a result, generations have lived in the shadow of vacant, contaminated industrial properties. Children in struggling neighborhoods are exposed to lead-based paint and other silent assassins. Families of modest means and fixed incomes are left out of the community planning process. But as we move forward, we must do everything in our power to change that culture. And so I would like to talk a little bit about one initiative in particular, Lead-Free Mohawk Valley, where we are investing $5 million to eradicate lead contamination in low-income neighborhoods. As the refugee center, we place hundreds of families, newly arrived refugees, into low-income housing in the city of Utica every year. And lead contamination is a huge problem. We unfortunately have had to help families remediate children who have been lead poisoned. And we know that the effects of that, last a lifetime. So what that means in Utica, and I think in lead-poisoned cities in general, is we have properties where the landlords, who know a little bit now, won't even consider renting on the books to families that have children below a certain age, making, acquiring housing even harder. And people do better when they know better, but they also need the resources to do better. And so these dollars, house by house, have absolutely been transformative in low-income neighborhoods in the city, and also as far as allowing us to access safe and affordable housing for low-income folks. Access to childcare. Childcare is among the most significant barriers to employment in the region, yet something that you rarely hear discussed in economic development. Our region has a supply gap of almost 16,000 childcare slots. It's incredible. It's a huge barrier. And I want to share my story a little bit. I was, I guess what one would call back in the day, a latchkey kid. When I was 10, my mother became suddenly a single parent. And so where I had been in gymnastics and Girl Scouts, suddenly when she got a second shift job at a nursing home, I had to quit all my after-school activities, come home and care for a younger developmentally disabled sister. Getting dinner at 10, putting her to bed. My life radically changed, and it was impactful, not for the best. And so fast forward, many decades, and I'm working with refugee and immigrant clients who are still living that same story. And it's incredibly impactful in their lives, and a lot of times it hits women and young girls. We have worked with clients where teenage girls have been withdrawn from school to provide childcare for younger siblings in a family. So, without help and remediation, they won't even get their high school diploma. So not only is it a barrier to workforce, it is just incredibly impactful to entire families and communities. So I am so proud that this region is doing the work to increase the number and quality of affordable caregivers across the region, improving geographic, cultural, and financial access to these caregivers, and advocating for higher pay for dedicated quality child care workers. We did the research, we listened to our community, and this is going to be so incredibly impactful. I'm very proud to be, in this trailblazing region, the Mohawk Valley. Workforce. The term workforce is nebulous and means different things to different players. We're going to use the term talented people. Childcare is only one of the primary barriers to employment in our region. This may be the tightest labor market our companies have ever experienced, yet we have the talent to grow. If we are going to bring tens of thousands of workers off the sidelines, we need to continue to listen. the agency that I work at, we put hundreds of people into the jobs every year, 300 to 400 job placements every year. We also draw secondary migrants and immigrants from other parts of the country to come to the Mohawk Valley to get employment. And you know, we also do a lot of entrepreneurship and helping folks, once they get here, access the services that they need to be successful. And I want to highlight a young woman you can see up there on the screen, Do Kapa Sopa. She arrived in the Mohawk Valley in 2009 from Thailand. She's a high school graduate, and she attended the Young Entrepreneurs Program through Mohawk Valley Community College. She's a first-year student at MVCC studying accounting and business, and she also joined the Young Entrepreneurs Academy. So she started her own little business called Designs by Doe as a response to waste generated by the fast fashion industry. And being a refugee herself, she understands firsthand where the wasted, unwanted clothes eventually end up. Accessing programs at the center, she's been able to carry that dream forward. We meet with her bi-weekly and are working towards a fall 2020 launch of her latest collection. To date, we've worked on social media campaign structure, a product roadmap, and attended, small business development events. And we work with our clients, all of our clients, in just this way, providing access and inclusion every step of the way. We can all learn from Doe's unique perspective as an immigrant, and by learning, build a brighter future together. Thank you.
Thanks, Shelley, and thank you all for this opportunity. The stories you hear from Shelley can't happen without performance, and performance can't happen without our ability to impact the lives of the people Shelley talked about. So if you go back to 2011 and look at the numbers, the highlights of what we've been able to deliver, we're very proud, almost 700 projects, approaching 15,000 jobs, approaching 2 billion, billion with a B, and CFA awards with your help of almost $300 million. That type of performance, going back to what Marion opened with, was something we never thought could happen. A lot of people didn't, but under the governor's leadership, we've been able to move forward in this region. If you take a look at the projects that we have, of those projects, 83% are complete or underway, and you can see they spread across this whole region. This was a region when we first started that wasn't really a region. The Mohawk Valley region was kind of, well, we got Syracuse and we got Albany, we'll call it the Mohawk Valley and put these counties together. It was a group of people that had never worked together before and weren't necessarily eager to do so. Yet 8 years later, we've come together and put together this type of success, which has been huge. And as we look at the spectrum of success from our industries and high tech to agribusiness to the social initiatives we've talked about, what we wanted to do today was just highlight a few of those projects for you. So if you take a look at what we've done, it starts out with Briggs & Stratton and Sherrill, where they've brought a 600,000 square foot industrial complex that's adding hundreds of jobs in our region where it's needed desperately. But it's not just about work jobs, it's about fun. The Nexus Center in downtown Utica is breaking ground and moving forward. Water Safari, one of the top parks in the country, is going on a major multi-million-dollar expansion. We're talking about access. Healthcare deserts, just like food deserts, exist in our area. We're breaking ground with CFA dollars in Little Falls Hospital in Dowdesville for a new center there. Food deserts is very common in our area. The Bargain Grocery, if you've been in downtown Utica, has just opened up recently, and that's bringing groceries and real quality groceries to people that wouldn't have had access to them. We're just not bringing that type of food, we're making it. Healthy Lifestyles Vita Blend is opened up in Montgomery County, so it continues our agribusiness path. Excuse me. If you take a look at the Doyle, once a textile mill moved into a hardware store, is now a cool loft space. When the DRI started, the then Secretary of State told us the DRIs were looking for the next Brooklyn. We don't quite want to be the next Brooklyn, but we're okay with being a little bit cool. The Doyle's providing that urban-type setting. We have occupants in that building from 18 years old to 88 years old, and it's that new feel of what we're looking for in the downtown regions. Right across the street from it, another developer is opening yet another loft space that's right there across the way. Many of you have had the chance to tour the Masonic Medical Research Institute, where the technology, I'm still not sure what they're telling me when I walk through it as an economics major, but our new executive director, who we stole from Harvard, is on path to bringing just about now 60 research scientists to the area from the PhD level to the bench level. Those are people that are going to be filling up these lofts. And they're also bringing spouses. And the cool part of it is they really like living here. They love our community. We told a story a little earlier about it's a lot more fun to buy a house in Utica, New Hartford, Amsterdam for a couple $100,000 than to buy a fixer-upper for $900,000 in Cambridge that's a wreck. So we've really brought in this type of leadership, and it's making a real difference for us. Tourism, went the wrong way, sorry about that. Tourism is a big part of this. Amsterdam has not only a new, but the first hotel in downtown Amsterdam. With your guidance, Amsterdam became a DRI winner, and the rebirth of Amsterdam is great. If you keep looking around, we are now taking a lot of new distribution centers. Dollar General's 800,000 square foot facility is bringing 400 new jobs to Montgomery County. Going forward, Orgill's announcement is a $71 million project on the former Griffiths Air Base. Today, Griffiths stands as one of the best examples of a repurposed air base. When Griffiths left Rome, New York, many people thought that was going to be the end of Rome. Today, it's a booming area, and Orgill's there. We haven't shown, but right nearby in Herkimer County, Tractor Supply has opened a 1 million square foot building. I really didn't know what a 1 million square foot looked like till I saw it. I drove by it this morning. Again, it's amazing how much is going on there. I'll learn these buttons yet. If you take a look at what else is happening, we have NISTEC moving forward at Griffiths, along with Booz Allen. This is, again, in our cluster, moving STEM-related jobs, cyber, right in the middle of the unmanned airspace. It's all happening there. So we've got quite a bit that's going on in the sector. And if you think about it, that's all pretty good. But it sort of seems like I might have missed something. Steve, is there anything of a project size that I've missed?
I think next slide. That's great.
Next slide?
You should take
I'll
credit for that.
go one more to this one. I missed one there.
Yeah, thank you, Larry. And it's a pleasure to be here, and all your support over the past several years have helped support many of the key strategies and initiatives that we have highlighted today. One of them has been the development of Marcy Nano Center, and on September 23rd, the governor made a major announcement. We refer to this project as Project Apollo in commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the landing on the moon. So on September 23rd, the Eagle did land. So we're quite pleased with this initiative here. This investment is $1.2 billion. There's over 600 jobs that will be created. Cree is essentially going to be building the largest silicon carbide manufacturing facility in the world, and it's going to be home basically to focus in key technology areas, primarily focused in electric vehicle technology. They have key technologies that go into the electric vehicle and the electrification of automobiles, as well as 5G communications and some other technology areas. So 600 jobs will be coming to the Mohawk Valley, and the important thing is Cree is looking to actually reverse the migration trend, which took people from the Northeast and sent them south. They are looking to reverse that and send people from North Carolina and Research Triangle up to the greater Utica area here. So the project is underway. They have actually started posting jobs. They have stood up the clean room facility at SUNY Poly here in Albany to basically reactivate the silicon carbide tool set. They had produced their first test wafer 2 weeks ago, and they have issued their RFPs and shortly will make a decision on design build firms. So in 2020, you will be seeing a building coming out of the ground at the SUNY Poly campus in Marcy, New York. That highlights one of the key areas that has been a primary focus for us over the years here. But if you look at the panoramic view in terms of the types of industries we try to support, we really have focused on STEM-intensive industries. And the reason why we have done that is that these are industries that basically do move the needle on a regional economy here. First off, advanced manufacturing jobs or jobs involved in technology, life sciences, do pay 1.5 to 2 times the regional wage for the Mohawk Valley area, so they are a dynamic employer that basically provides the type of economic impact and jolt that you need in order to support a lot of the other cool things that are happening in the area and the lifestyle amenities and the revibrancy of our urban centers. All of that is a result of an economy which is not only creating jobs, it also is creating the types of jobs that here provide meaningful livelihoods for to attract talent and hold on to talent in the region. Advanced manufacturing jobs, we are an older manufacturing area, but we still have some very strong manufacturing firms who have modernized and who have invested in our region and continue to grow. And they are largely export-driven type of manufacturers, whether it's a Revere, whether it's Special Metals, a ConMed, or Worthington Industries. Those are the types of industries basically to sell to the world. And if you sell to the world here, you're bringing far more economic impact in terms back into your regional economy. Technology, I talked about advanced electronics, but one of the key underpinnings of our economy is really the presence of the Air Force Research Laboratory, which has over $2 billion in regional economic impact and R&D spending. They basically are focusing in a world-class center for cyber technologies, cybersecurity, C4I technologies, and more importantly, they have just recently done a pretty bold initiative for the Air Force, which basically to try to replicate some of the key facilities that are inside their facilities, put them outside their fence line, and in partnership with Oneida County, basically create what's called an open innovation campus. It's actually that rendering there is the open innovation campus. It's located on the airport side of Griffiths. It has the UAS test site, which I'll talk about shortly, but more importantly, what it allows is for the Air Force basically to create an unclassified environment where they can bring in international researchers who can work in facilities that exist within a classified environment, but do it in an open, unclassified environment, and focus on some of the key technology areas that are of the utmost importance to the senior leadership of the Air Force, primarily focusing on machine learning, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing, which adds to already the robust technology portfolio the lab has here in the Mohawk Valley. So that's an initiative which is underway. That building is actually being built and renovated as we speak. By the middle of next year, the lights will be on, the building will be occupied, and the lab will be working closely with some of its other technology partners such as SUNY Poly, IBM, Applied Materials, and an international clientele who will be coming in basically to work in some of these interesting and dynamic research initiatives here. The unmanned aerial systems, or the UAS test site at Griffiths, we are one of 7 of the test sites in the United States here. We are the only one that has a full range of test instrumentation capability here. Because of the unique industrial base we have in both sensors and radars and software technologies, the key focus of this test site has been focusing on sense and avoid technologies. NASA has been a key sponsor of some of the research that's taken place at the test site, and they're focusing in urban air mobility, and you're probably wondering, what is urban air mobility? Little did we know that back in the 60s, the Hanna-Barbera were actually futurists. So the UAS test site basically is working on terms of integrating autonomous technologies into the civilian airspace here, and it's not going to be that long before you start seeing more activity in terms of using a UAS systems to support a wide range of business enterprises, whether it's logistics or whether it's supporting government and some of its needs to have a force multiplier, whether it's inspecting bridges or whether it's looking at flooding, things of that nature, law enforcement, the Department of Interior and crash rescue and firefighting prevention type of technologies. All of that could be done with UAS systems. So I think the important point is on all of this is that as a former head of Deloitte Consulting who was in our area about 2 weeks ago, he indicated that you really are punching way above your weight when it comes to technology. So we have a robust portfolio of technologies that are really changing the dynamics of our economy, and more importantly, they are in advanced electronics, they're in cyber technologies, they're in new cutting-edge research and development initiatives, whether it's quantum computing, life sciences, as Larry had mentioned, with Masonic Medical Research, and obviously the robust portfolio of technologies that take place at the Air Force Research Laboratory. But while we're looking at trying to focus on creating the jobs of tomorrow here, we are also focusing on ways to create an environment that's going to be attractive for people to come and live here, bring families here. People who are growing up here obviously choose to stay here. So we have put a lot of emphasis in terms of placemaking within our community here to really create a sense of presence for the Mohawk Valley and for our communities as they look to reestablish their presence as being an inviting place for people to choose to locate, to recreate, to play, and then choose to live here. So we have taken advantage of some of the iconic geographic features of our region here. Clearly, water is one of them with the canal and the Mohawk River. So a lot of the investments that have taken place across the spectrum of the Mohawk Valley has focused on trying to use water as a way to reestablish once former manufacturing communities and make them a place in which people choose to live and to recreate. And with that, I think one of the key things that has come out of this process over time has been really more in terms of looking how you build more of a holistic view in terms of economic development. So we focus on certain types of industry clusters, and you've obviously focused on workforce, and we also look at basically creating vibrant communities which are going to be attractive to people. So I think the governor is quite wise in terms of carving out of the REDC process the downtown revitalization initiatives. So we're very pleased to have been active in supporting all of those initiatives here. To date, we have 3 communities that have have ongoing DRI activities here. Oneonta, which is in the second year of their downtown business improvement grants, which are focusing on entrepreneurship and repurposing their Main Street storefronts. And I forgot about clicking that. The City of Rome, which is a winner 2 years ago, basically is repurposing their downtown. They've taken down a decaying parking garage, which was a product of the urban renewal era, and basically daylighting their entire downtown area. They have broke ground on a new central public bus terminal. They have Copper City Lofts, which is a arts-based affordable housing project. It's going to be located on an infill site in downtown Rome, which is going to HCR for funding this month. And nearby to the downtown is a former industrial era facility, which has been largely vacant and abandoned. It's been a brownfield area, and ground is being broken on a brand new 50,000 square foot manufacturing facility. That's all a product out of the DRI initiatives that come out of the City of Rome, and obviously Oneonta. Amsterdam has just reached their major milestone and put together their community-driven strategic investment plan. So all of our DRI proposals have really focused on obviously repopulating the urban centers, making them really 24/7 type of living communities, trying to bring more in terms of lifestyle amenities into the downtowns, and then really playing up some of the key features that make their downtowns unique and attractive for outside investment. So we have 5 proposals for the 4th round. Obviously, our 4th winner hasn't been announced yet, and we'll wait for that to be announced later. I think a site selector a couple years ago and was asking me, so what's the sizzle for your downtown? I'll leave that community nameless at the moment. And I think right now, and I've seen that with the Cree visit, they were very impressed in terms of the level of vibrancy and vitality that they saw exhibited in the region during many of their visits over the course of the summer here. And I think that's a product of the fact that we have a comprehensive, holistic, unified economic development strategy, which is really changing the landscape of the Mohawk Valley.
Thank you, Steve. So why would we talk about craft manufacturing and food systems? I want to harken us back to the Revolutionary War, where the valley was seen as a breadbasket, and how the farmers sustained and produced the crops for George Washington's army. So today, the craft food and beverage manufacturing continues to flourish. As a matter of fact, New York grown and certified products are in demand across actually the entire globe. International powerhouses such as Fahey, Saranac, Beekman, Omegon, and dozens more are grown and manufactured right here. Many of our projects start with a vision and a dream and in small spaces. Such is the case as the Food and Farm Incubator at my college, SUNY Cobleskill. We started in a very small 200-foot laboratory, and the dream turned into a powerful reactor, a core reactor, I should say, for farmers, entrepreneurs, and scientists. SUNY Cobleskill plowed new furrows in the community, and we have become a regional center for higher learning as well as community development. The food and food system entrepreneurship and the incubator now is a part of the Institute for Rural Vitality, which is made up of 5 centers that is serving the community on all aspects of economic development, whether it be in our own child care, whether it be in policy making. Albany Law School is now on campus and has started a rural law center that will now become part of the fabric of the Mohawk Valley. Bassett Health, the Alzheimer's Association, and on and on and on. There are now over 100 projects happening. And the importance of that is a fusion that we call happening in not only in our food systems and our growers, but in our communities. We now have innovators who are redefining the breadbasket for the region, worldwide, and for the future. Oops, went too fast. Tourism. This includes obviously our downtowns, and we formulated a recipe that works when it comes to tourism, whether it's adventure tourism, agritourism, and heritage tourism. That's what makes us so unique and diverse. Actually, and has resulted in a $2 billion direct spending program, and we're only second behind New York City, and that's per capita. So what I'd like to highlight is the cover of our progress report this year epitomizes the harmony of our strategies. Cooperstown brand has for decades been baseball, and now has grown to mean so many more things to so many people, both the residents and international visitors. Supplied with valley-grown produce and grains and hops, and local culinary and craft brewing destinations have been paired nicely with hundreds of thousands of visitors to the National Baseball Hall of Fame, the museum, Doubleday Field, and baseball camps. Place-based investments in the Hall of Fame and Main Street and the green infrastructure, new and expanding farm breweries and the Brewery of Omegon's concert, culinary expansion continue to fuel our growth in visitor spending. As they say in Cooperstown, we're batting well above our average.
Thank you, Marion. If you take a look at the priority projects and what we've accomplished and what we've talked about, I think you can agree there's been much accomplished during the past 8 years. As we look at those priority projects for this year, there's great leverage, there's a number of jobs, and more importantly, as you dig into the projects, they're real, they're meaningful, and they'll help us continue our high rate of completion as you go forward. The challenge as you look at those numbers is they're just numbers, and what I'd like to do is spend just a second talking about how we personalize a couple of those. When we talk about the highlight of downtowns in Gloversville, Mike Medina was somebody who was incarcerated as a young man. What's that mean? Normally, no hope for anything. But Mike struggled to find employment, and through some local programs, is now opened his own business on what was formerly a vacant lot in downtown Johnstown, Gloversville. And so Mike has now built a business, he's built community there, and he is giving back because he's mentoring at the local schools. And we look at somebody like that, that doesn't happen. That vacant block could have stayed vacant. There could have been no program to help him, and who knows what bad choices he would have been faced with. When we talk about child care, Whispering Pines is one of our projects. You've heard from Shelley much better than I can articulate the challenges that are out there. Whispering Pines is just one of those many projects that's going to let that mom find a way to let her daughter go to Girl Scouts, go to those programs, and not at 10 years old be in that kind of position. So when we look at these projects, what we think is, yes, these are great projects, but it ties right back very carefully to what we've been talking about all along. Before we close, what we wanted to do was share a video with you that'll highlight some of the things that have been happening in our area. So if you can give us a couple minutes, this should queue up.
Eight years ago, our communities came together to conceive a comprehensive vision for the future. We formed an alliance to disrupt the status quo. We endeavored to strengthen American manufacturing, revitalize our cities and villages, create global tourism destinations, build resilient infrastructure, and pursue the advanced industries of the future. We've rewritten the narrative on the Mohawk Valley. Gone are the days of job loss, quiet main streets, and community apathy. In words and in deeds, we made commitments to industry, to community, and to country. Faced with scarcity, we chose prosperity. Faced with rust, we chose steel. Faced with the legacy of the past, we chose the promise of the future. Our industry is a player in the global arena. Downtowns and waterfronts across the archipelago of small cities and villages in the Mohawk Valley are unrecognizable as compared to a decade ago. Our region is now the point of the spear as the nation explores new frontiers in cybersecurity, unmanned systems, and advanced electronics. The future of electric vehicles depends wholly on the power electronics that will be produced right here in the Mohawk Valley by Cree. Despite attempts to curb immigration, our region continues to welcome new Americans and empower them. We are tackling head-on the child care crisis in our community by not only prioritizing projects, but also aligning our partners for a unified approach. Our 2019 priority projects advance industry, improve water quality, modernize infrastructure, convert waste to energy, stimulate mixed use and affordable housing, enhance tourism destinations, help families to overcome barriers to employment, reverse decades of environmental injustice, and lay the foundation for smart growth in our rural communities. Every new dollar is critical to sustaining the momentum. Everything we have done in these 8 years has led us to this moment. We are on the cusp of a new era in the Mohawk Valley. Our future is real, and it's here.
Thank you. One of the things that is, on top of that being a great video, the story behind it is Anthony Owens is a gentleman whose company produced this video. He's a resident of Mohawk Valley, and he was also someone who was incarcerated and had no place to go. And one of the real challenges for people trying to start, in displaced populations, trying to start a business is access to capital. Through the New York State Homes and Community Funding administered by Mohawk Valley Edge, he was able to access that capital and now has a thriving business. So not only did he tell a great story, he himself is a great story for us. As we wrap up, Marion said, people would have laughed at us years ago thinking about this. If we showed this video 8 years ago, people wouldn't have believed it. Yet you believed it, and New York State believed it. I was on a bus sitting with the governor, driving through the SUNY campus, then SUNY IT, in 2011, and we were looking at vacant land. And his quote was, "What's it going to take to get this done?" Well, now Cree's there, and it's done. So when you think about us, and I know we're at the beginning, but you think back to this presentation, we'd like you to remember a couple things. One of them is the Mohawk Valley cares. This isn't just about numbers, it's about people. Two is we deliver. Don't do this because you feel bad for us, and we said that 8 years ago. we're a good investment. We've delivered on that investment, and we're not done. We're at a critical point with all that's happening where we need to get to that next level. Your dollars will make a huge difference to us. We take that responsibility seriously, and we look forward to continuing to deliver. Thank you.
Thank you for really an amazing and moving presentation. That also is a great way to kick off this series this year, so thank you. And I recognized all the places we've been together. So I hope you'll talk a little bit about the Thinkubator. It's always been in my mind since I visited there. It must have been 2 years ago. Before we start questions, I wanted to acknowledge Senator Breslin, who joined us after we started. Thank you for joining the SIAC this year. And I'm going to start the questions with one of the most amazing things to come out of Mohawk Valley, which is the phenomenon known as Commissioner Rowan Zestito.
Rosanna, thank you very much. And thank you. That was a great presentation. So yes, full disclosure that Rosanna made, I am from the Mohawk Valley, lived there, first home. Albany's kind of my second home. I want to thank you very much for your presentation. It was a great presentation, and welcome to all of you. I want to focus on your child care initiative. That was a great presentation, Shelley. That was wonderful. But I think I would just like to say that you're recognizing that with new people coming into the community, and the age 20 to 34-year-olds are going to be looking for hopefully starting a family in the Mohawk Valley. So I know you've identified the problem, but you also talk about in your report a transportation issue, and transportation to the jobs, transportation to child care, pedestrian walking, but also making sure that those people who want to live in the downtowns that are beautifully being revitalized, and the governor's program of downtown revitalization is really working throughout the Mohawk Valley, just getting people to where the jobs are. And not all millennials and not all young people want to own a car or drive a car, as we know in the bigger cities, but it's happening now in the smaller cities also. So what are your plans? Do you have any, Centro is there, but how are you working with the existing organizations for transportation?
Sure, thanks. And so with those 20 to 34-year-olds hoping to start a family, you got some news you want to share?
Me?
Christopher, you lobbying?
No grandchildren.
But as we talk about transportation...
Sadly to say. Not saying anything.
As we talk about transportation, and I'm going to pass this down, there's a couple of things that are already in place that goes with things happening at the Refugee Center, but as we talk about Cree and others coming to the area and transportation, I'm going to defer to Mike and Steve and ask them to address it.
Well, I think, part of the things we focused on is trying to bring jobs closer to where people live here. That's a clear thing, and not trying to do scatter type of development here. That's very expensive, it's very inefficient, and it doesn't have as dynamic an impact as it does when you're able to try to better rationalize your infrastructure and bring jobs closer to people here. But we also put a focus in terms of more walkability, pedestrian type trails, bike paths. We've done that at Griffiths. We're connecting Griffiths with the city of Rome. Obviously, the Erie Canal Trail is an important type of investments being made. The Cree investment, they're going to be focusing on electric vehicles, so they're obviously hoping that young people will have electric vehicles. But that site's also on a bus route, and it also has a bike path that makes it very accessible, being so close to downtown Utica. I think the investments that Rome was making with the new Central Station, the investments that Utica had made also in building a Central Station very close to key employers in downtown Utica are important aspects in terms of how we focus in terms of trying to bring people closer to their place of employment.
And I think, too, it becomes kind of as placemaking in terms of investments in our downtowns with daycare as well. We have 4 applications in this round of funding that we hope to receive incentives for. One located at the Thea Bowman House in downtown Utica, down in Amsterdam. Herkimer County is putting back in place a daycare center with 53 spots available. So it's just important to make sure we have those services available close to where the people live and where they work.
That's great. Thank you very much.
I'm going to go to Commissioner Ball.
Thank you so much. Very impressive presentation. My home community as well out there, and very much appreciate the reference to agriculture as you started off your presentation. But everywhere I go around the state, and I'm going to tee up my friend Commissioner Reardon just a little bit here, we see lots of farms, we see lots of businesses in the food systems that are growing, and recognizing that even though agriculture represents a small segment of our population, when you think about the food system, it's somewhere around 47% of the jobs in the country are tied to the food system. Technology, food safety, logistics, transportation, research, what have you. But as we get around the state and visit some of these new businesses, the biggest issue we hear is about workers. Workers on farms, workers in the beverage facilities, the food processing, and the skills that are required. And we talk often about it. I think we do a fantastic job when we get our young people to SUNY Cobleskill or any of our land-grant schools that we have around the state. But it seems to me that we need to reach a little deeper and identify pathways for young people in our rural communities and our urban communities to find a way into the food system. And I wonder if you could just speak a little bit about how we do that, how we have our rural communities keep their young people, and how we have our urban communities keep their young people. Obviously, great work with refugees and making them feel like they have a new home. That's fantastic. But could you speak a little bit about that?
It'd be my pleasure. A couple things that it's not just SUNY Cobleskill doing, because you have to create the network. So we are working with as many colleges that consider themselves what we call rural serving through the SUNY system, as well as some of the privates, because it's important. It's, as we say, a holistic ecosystem. And we're coming together to say, okay, what are the pathways, particularly from high school in? As a matter of fact, we're starting to work with the middle schools to say, and we have actually, it's called Mobile Skill. We have a mobile unit that literally has lesson plans and videos and actually full course experiences, and we take it into the middle schools, and they're all about, to your point, Commissioner, the jobs that are related to agriculture. I understand, too, that 11% of the GDP is agriculture related as well. So and we say to the students, actually, agriculture is the umbrella of all kinds of sciences. So we are really pushing to say that STEM, no matter what program you're in STEM, it is ag-related, and agriculture is the grandmother and the grandfather of it all. We are working on a P-TECH program where we have the only P-TECH agriculture program in the state with St. Johnsville. In a county of only 30,000, we have 1,000 high school enrollments in our program, because it's not just agriculture, it's getting these students to know education is still the great equalizer. We talk about environmental justice, not just through agriculture, but we need to educate these young rural students to know that that is their best way out. We're also working very closely with an urban hub center right now in the Bronx. That program is through the Institute, and we will be working with the urban centers and showing that urban students can do very well in agriculture. One of the biggest feeders of our program from the Queens, if you haven't never been there, is John Baum High School, which is an agriculture high school. Everything is small. Small horses, small cows. because it's in Queens. We need to do more. The incubator I referred to earlier, we have 30 incubator companies on campus, but we're going to the next level with them in terms of the policy they need and the understanding the legal ramifications of opening a business. So, and I can go on, but it's a multifaceted approach, Commissioner. I think you would agree that you have to start young. The other thing we're doing is the college sits on the board of superintendents of all the schools in the county, and actually Otsego County wants to join us. And we're going to do something like the following, which is related. We want to realign the curriculum from K-12 all the way through college in English and math. And we want to say no student, whether they're in 8th grade, 9th grade, or going to college, should be in any kind of remedial math or English. Now that relates to getting them ready for the market, but it's got to be broad and then showing them the importance of what can happen in the space for agriculture. I hope that answers your question.
I think that was the whole bale of hay. Yes.
That's how we do it.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thanks very much.
So, first of all, I want to thank my friend, Commissioner Ball, for teeing this up. We're a little bit of a tag team on the workforce development side of this, and it's always a great pleasure to work with Richard on all these issues. First of all, congratulations. It is a truly remarkable presentation, and the thoughtfulness that you put into such difficult questions as childcare and helping refugees resettle in a new country and bringing new technologies and new industries into your region and revitalizing the beautiful aspects of the Mohawk Valley. It's really very impactful. So hats off to all of you. You've really done a remarkable job. You know the next thing out of my mouth is going to be workforce development. And there are a lot of really great opportunities that you've presented, and what Dr. Trenzio just spoke about with the Koboskill, the ag part of it is really fabulous. I think aligning the math and reading K through college is absolutely spot on, because everything we hear, regardless of what area is looking for workers, it's reading ability and math. Those are the two barriers that stop people from succeeding. So that said, we know that there's a deficit of middle skills, people with middle skills in the region. We've known that for a long time. We know that there's a lack of strategy here. But I want to point specifically to Cree, because Cree is such an enormous opportunity for the entire region. And they're going to hire, I think, 650 employees with very specific skill sets. And I understand with Cree and with the medical center, you bring in people from the outside because they're highly skilled professional people that you need, and it's adding to this great base that you're building. But what are we doing to ensure that the young people or adults who live in the Mohawk Valley can be prepared to move into those jobs, because we don't want to import all the workers?
That's a very good question, Commissioner, and it's one that's been part of all of our strategies in terms of trying to market the region for the advanced electronics sector. It's not just having a site and incentives here, it's also being able to demonstrate that you have the ability, one, to attract talent from the outside, but also develop talent from within your region here. And if you look in the upstate region, there is a strong base of people with technical skill sets, and we are blessed to have a strong network of public and private universities and a great network of community colleges, really, which are at the front end in terms of providing a lot of the skill sets to support key employers and to be able to customize training programs to support specific needs here. In the case of Cree here, I mean, they are going to be looking to bring some people in, but they're also looking to tap into our community college system. They've spent a lot of time at Mohawk Valley Community College, for example, and looking at the programs there, which are set up to support advanced manufacture and advanced electronics, and we're going to provide some scale to help support that in terms of some of the incentives that we have built into the financing package with Cree. In addition, SUNY Poly has been very resourceful in terms of attracting National Science Foundation funding here, which is being used for training programs. They're trying to tap into Fort Drum. We're basically cycling out about 200 soldiers a month, and they're trying to get in the front end before soldiers depart, and to try to expose them not only to advanced electronics and nanotechnology, but also advanced manufacturing jobs. We think we can provide more scale to that as well, particularly having another anchor in the advanced electronics sector located between the Utica area and obviously the capital region. P-Tech programs, we have good programs. I'd like to provide some scale to that. We're working with one of our local community partners on trying to put together a program that will really target more, I would call them, at-risk populations, the things that we can do to try to get them into some of the programs and pipelines here, whether it's apprenticeship programs or whether it's some of the more intensified certificate-type programs so that they could be prepared to support jobs, whether it's Cree or a ConMed or an Indium Corporation or a Danfoss. And so we think we have some opportunities there as well. And I think one of the things that Cree is going to really focus on is paid internships. They're looking at basically taking engineering students, and while a fab is being built, expose them to working in their existing facilities here, and then bring that talent back up to Mohawk Valley. Danfoss did that. Danfoss, as they were tooling up their packaging center at SUNY Poly, hired people and sent them all off to Germany, where they got to train on the same tools that they are operating now at the Danfoss facility. Also got to sample some good, fine German beers, which is an added
More than
benefit.
once.
But I think it's a question of being more aggressive and more intensify your efforts here. We have a lot of the key programs and infrastructure in place, and I think now with the opportunity, you have the ability to bring some scale to that.
Great, thank you very much.
I just want to add a little bit too, because it's a broader piece that we all should be aware. It's not just that the higher education institutions have to step up. We have to change. We have to get ready for what we say Industry 4.0. And I'm proud to say that the colleges in the Mohawk Valley have coming together to figure that out. There's a phenomenon called Go Pro Early. And it is the businesses are going into high schools and grabbing the students and saying, we'll train you. What is the problem with that? That is not necessarily preparing the workforce to which you're referring to, Commissioner Reardon. And the colleges, and we're doing it, and the colleges that Steve mentioned, to say, go work and get college credit. That's the big piece, that the students need to work and the credit, and that has been a problem with the colleges saying, no, if you're working, no, we're not giving you credit. It's the apprenticeship programs to which Steve alluded. It's the micro-credentials. And what we're doing in SUNY is to say, okay, business, you teach, we'll give you you give the credit, we'll give the credit back to the students. Because if students have to work and then work to go to college and not get any credit, that's the problem. So it's a certain model that we have to put in place, not just higher ed as is. Okay? And you can quote me on that.
We will.
We shall, for sure. Thank you. Brian?
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Good morning, everyone, and welcome. Thank you for that great presentation. I heard you say, and also, by the way, thank you for this lovely mug, and I was so pleased to see that it includes one of our great canal tugs on here, because we know that the canal system is a great part of the Mohawk Valley. In fact, that's where the canal started, but I won't go off script. I heard you say that the tourism in the Mohawk Valley, that the Mohawk Valley has got the state's fastest growing tourism region. And of course, we all know what a great part of the governor's upstate economic development strategy rests upon tourism, and in fact, tourism is a very important part of our canal system too. Can you tell us the component of international tourism that is growing within the region? What you're doing to covet and to recruit more international tourism?
I think it's building the infrastructure in terms of getting exposure through the web and getting on to that whole e-commerce piece. But it's also working with the New York State Global Office, where the kind of marketing and strategies that they can do to bring forward the kinds of goods and services we serve. I go broader than that, and I actually talk about with this the notion of the United Nations. The United Nations is actually calling all of us, particularly in agriculture, and I hope others can talk about the advanced manufacturing. We have to feed the world. It's clear. And how do we get those products to market? So what Cobleskill is doing, for example, is the incubator project where 30 companies are doing their products, but we're making them and helping them do it online as well. Finding also what markets we can do and then matching the two together. But it's going to be through the internet and really making that very robust. Somebody else want to?
You know, it's unfortunate that Renee Shavat couldn't be with us today, and she had something pressing and couldn't because she teed this up. So if I don't quite hit the curveball, think about Renee.
We can count on her.
But if you look at what her business has done, the strategy works for all. It's taking that international tourism flowing through New York City, which is just this huge opportunity, and bringing it upstate. So in Sharon Springs, there's investment to revitalize the Bass that's heavily a Korean investment play that's going to tie that back in. I believe it was just yesterday it was announced that they're going to come up with a Central New York cheese trail, which goes through the Mohawk Valley, which is going to tie into the beverage trail that's wine and breweries. So while people are going to bike trips in Napa Valley and in Italy, we're looking for that same type of tourist. And the idea is if you go to Paris, you may also want to go see the rest of France. Not everybody does. If you go to New York City, maybe you just want Metro, but it's tying our events and coordinating that. Kelly Blazowski, who runs Oneida County Tourism, has coordinated a lot of this for the region, and that connection says, yeah, let's take the kids up to this new water safari park. Let's go play world-class golf at Turning Stone. So it's tying into that feeder, which seems to be, I think, part of what's already working.
Thank you very much, Larry. And again, our congratulations on a great presentation.
Thank you.
Oh, Senator Kaplan?
Good morning. Thank you. Yes, it really was a wonderful presentation, and the video was really amazing. And the story behind the person making it was really also very heartfelt. So I chair Commerce, Small Business, and Economic Development. And as such, I took it upon myself last month to do a tour, a listening tour, and visited 9 different regions. And I know you touched on this a little bit, but one big concern was housing, affordable housing, especially in some areas that public transportation is not readily available. How do you deal with that? And if you could just go a little bit more into detail.
Sure. So we have several housing initiatives that have been funded through our projects. Mike, could you touch on some of that?
Yes, we have projects already ongoing in the city of Rome, and part of the DRI projects that was mentioned, the infill site is going to be a low modern income apartment rentals. We have another DRI project in downtown Oneonta. Have market rate apartments being built on the Air Force Base. And we have another development that's just starting now down in the city of Amsterdam, and have another developer that's looking to submit this fall to HCR for tax credits for a project that would be, again, within the downtown footprint of their DRI that also has a commercial component to it. So across the region, we've seen more and more of these projects being built. And I've forgotten one in the city of Utica. Globe Mills is a very large project in our brewery district area that would be for low to moderate income people as well.
We seem, I think, Mike, to have found that, you know, yeah, it's great to have the lofts that are high end and everything else, but the projects the developers seem to really like are some of these mixed use where there's market rate housing and others. And there's a very interesting project that's the first of the country in Utica going up Kelberman Center that is designed to provide housing for people with autism and other disabilities combined with affordable housing for people and creating a real community. So that project's one we're really watching because it's not the first in the state, it may be the first in the country.
So those are basically done through DRIs?
I think the DRI has done it, but it's also been when we've funded projects, those type of projects through the CFA tend to rise to the top of our priority.
Yeah, some of them have been CFA projects, some of them have been through the DRI, some of them have been through the tax credit projects, and I'm not sure any of them have done totally without any type of assistance, but, so, there's a good sampling of projects across the region, which are addressing a specific need, but also, you know, one of the things we are seeing in our region, traditionally, we've been a region where you've been a homeowner, and we've never really developed the
Apartment building.
changes to what people want, which is apartments and some of the more urban living here. So we're obviously seeing a nice little growth spurt in those types of developments, which I think kind of plays more in terms of rebranding our urban centers.
Thank you.
Okay. We have maybe time for one more question. Anybody?
Hi, again, that's sort of on the downtown revitalization and the tourism. Just how effective you think the region is using the historic preservation tax credit, and is there anything you would say that we could use to make it greater penetration? Because we're always looking for ways to make that more effective. I note with the approval of the Doyle building and other things you're working on.
Yeah, the Doyle Building's one. The Rathbun, which is across the street, was also funded with historic tax credits. I think Globe Mills has historic tax credits in that project as well. We try to take advantage of all those opportunities because those are obviously tougher projects to try to put together. You try to match up in terms of the revenues and the expense side and the capex that has to go into them. You really need to be able to bring down some of that first dollar cost. So when you got buildings that basically qualify for historic tax credits, that's obviously a big opportunity. We have another building in downtown Utica, which is going to be kitty corner from the new hospital project. That's going to be probably a mixed-use type of development. Top floor is crying to be apartments there. That building was built in 1865, and it's would be a great historic tax credit type project.
Thank you. So, can we give the Mohawk Valley REDC another big round of applause for a great job? Thank you and good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we going to the other room?